Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's not going well today, I've got to tell you. I'm Mike, your host, and joining me today we've got Andy. First of all, you heard him in the commentary there. Condolences to John Watson and to his family. Obviously, thinking of you this time, everyone who loved him, which seems to be an awful lot of people. Andy, I said on Twitter, it's amazing how many clubs and fans of the club seem to see him as theirs, and that's very rare, especially now. Everyone, you mention any team and you obviously, that means you hate someone else straight away, but over the years John Watson's clearly loved by a lot of people.
It's funny because obviously every club takes almost ownership of Motton, but I think we've got a little bit more right than others. People might be aware that John Watson's last property was at the Sutton Exchange about 3 weeks ago. But did find out from various sources on the forum that his first ever commentary broadcast was the 1969 Amateur Cup final where we lost. So it was some kind of booking and footballing career. So I feel we've got a little bit more ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. We're having it. We will move on to talk about the win over Newport and look forward to our 125th birthday next week and the visit of Crewe, obviously. Don't forget, as usual, you can help with the cost of supporting the show with one-off donations or regular subscriptions by joining us on Patreon. If you want to know more, look for the support us page on the website. And obviously, if you need any other information, just drop me an email or any of the socials at Sutton Podcast. So we're going to get into it. Andy, it's been 55 days since you were on the show. Not pointing fingers, but the last time you were on the show, there were some technical problems and I was kicked out of my own live thing. I can't even get into my own live thing now. So how have you been since then?
I've been very good. I've let others take the podcasting mantle as you reminded me that I've probably been more than other people. So I thought I can do a bit different. Then welcome come back to people. I've been absolutely fine. I've been even better seeing how we've been playing. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've been playing absolutely brilliantly, but we'll get on to the match in a moment. Club news: the academy side drew their first match in the Merit League One with Wimbledon. It was 1-1. I did make such a mess of explaining what that was last week that I'm going to get Ross and some others possibly to come on and explain it for me, because I was like, all right, yeah, I have no idea what they said. So hopefully in the next few weeks we'll get Ross or someone from the academy on to sort of explain a little bit more about it. Ladies team today, brilliant. Could have been 10, and that's not one of those biased looking at it. It was they were superb. Great game today. Won 5-0, their second 5-0 win in a row. So really well done. So today we're doing on a slightly different platform. Things aren't going as well as they should. I'm going to have to go really low tech with stuff. And I've just 5 minutes ago found out that the intro for the next part has somehow managed to make itself speeded up a little bit. So I'm going to keep it in because I can't change it at this moment in time. But yeah, there's all sorts of gremlins going in today. I don't know what's going on, but we're going to move on to the ultimate team. 1 second.
And now, 125 years in the making. The Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. Sutton United all-time ultimate 11.
Obviously, it's just you here, but I did get the others to send theirs in. So What we'll do is, if I could start with yours, and again, for anyone who still hasn't got it, this is your favourite player, who it may not be your favourite player because they may already be in the team. Actually, I know one of your favourite players is already in the team, but this is your favourite. We'll start with central midfield. So who is your choice for central midfield slot?
I think, amazingly enough, it's probably Harry Kane.
Okay.
I think, again, we're almost, with some of the people that we've had playing central midfield in the time that again, we're almost fourth choice. So I was thinking Steve Watson from our winning season, Paul Rogers, of course, who was an absolute star. But I think Harry just shakes, only because of him basically becoming a football star after basically thrown away by Leighton Orient. We made him into a league player. Didn't quite work out for him in the end, and he ended up coming back to us, and we've made him into a league player again. So, for me, Harry just shakes it above him.
Okay. Well, we're going to have Jared's thoughts.
Will probably be Harry Buterman. Over the course of 2 spells at the club, Harry has done a lot. He's, I think, particularly if you look at the 1920 season, where his goals kept us up for a large part, at least kept us competitive, especially during those dark days in around about October, November time, where he was like the only player of any real quality it's in that we had, and kept us together, kept us going. And a large part of the success we've had since then has been built on that spell we had in the 1920 season. Also, just the fact he's just been a consistently great performer for Sutton since his first debut in 2011 and throughout his second spell at the club.
So, he agreed with you.
Yeah, almost word for word.
I was going to say, it's almost like you got together and said, "Hey, let's do this."
I Jared did at the match yesterday at all, but that one go.
But we also have Alex was due to be on. They both have. They didn't just both drop out. They both had reasons. Alex had to work, and I'm like, yeah, you absolutely have to take money because I'm not paying you. But here's his thoughts on the centre midfield spot.
Understand Eastman's been taken because, as you well know, he was my top choice. I think I actually put him in my all-time footballers central midfield position before I fully understood the brief. So I'm sure he'll be pleased with that. But for central midfield, I'm going to go with Kenny Davis. Appreciate no longer at the club and playing elsewhere at the moment, but I thought his commitment and longevity to Sutton during his 5-year spell, I think, with us or something like that. I'm sure you guys will know. I thought he was fantastic. I thought one of the reasons I'm picking him is he was so underrated. I think as a player, he was described as a workhorse, industrial, agricultural, that kind of central midfielder, scrappy kind of thing. But he had moments of incredible technique as well. Remember, he didn't get many goals for us. Remember, he got a free kick that he was partial to a free kick, wasn't he? Defting one into the top corner and a couple of long range strikes as well. So Kenny Davis, just for his commitment and overall performance for the Sutton.
So Alex went for Kenny, which surprising, but yeah, perfect reasons. I did think for a split second that he was going to choose Harry as well, but he alluded to it there. So I'm going to tell it. The reason I sent out the specific email explaining again, which people came back to me saying, well, that's a bit obvious, I thought, was Alex did initially sent me his all-time midfielders, and he put Vieira alongside Eastie, and I was like, I'm sure Eastie's going to be delighted with that. But Eastie's already team. So the vote for the central midfield spot will be Harry and Kenny. This one could be more interesting. Who's your striker?
Well,
I know who is your striker.
It would have been Paul McKinnon, but he's already on the list, so that box is already ticked. I've actually changed my mind. I was going to say Lenny Dennis,
right?
And Lenny was great with us. Him and McKinnon with the partnership that I started watching Sutton with. But then I changed my mind to probably what is the most obvious one out of the lot, and that's Craig Douglas. To me, it can't be anyone else. I mean, kids became adults whilst Craig Douglas was playing with us. Some of them became parents. Some of them might have become grandparents at the time. He's got an astonishing record. He came to us at a time where the club was probably hitting rock bottom. And apart from the one season where he went up to Hampton and Richmond, and we still ended up seeing in that season, he played a bit of Just been he is really part like Eastman and he as well, but he's part of the fabric of the club, and not just on the coaching staff. Even if he wasn't on the coaching staff, he still would. And he's netted over 100 goals and what have 500 games or whatever. Yeah, has to.
Okay, well, we will now get Alex's thoughts first.
And then up front, I mean, there is only one that I can pick. I'm sure I won't be the first or last to suggest this name, but it has to be Craig Dundas. Just again, longevity is a big part of my selections, both players. But Dunder, I mean, how many times has he played for us? You guys will know, but it's certainly over the 350 mark. I just think whilst he might be in a sort of player coach role now, which is impressive in itself, but when he was, in his heyday, he was a fairly prolific striker for Sutton. Prolific in the sense of non-league football. But yeah, I think he's deserves to be in the all-time 11 for his endurance, commitment to Sutton, and all-round attributes. Both on and off the pitch. I think he's a remarkably impressive character, and it's great to see him still at the club to this day. And being the oldest person to make their Football League debut was a lovely touch last season.
So yeah. This is why I thought it could be interesting, because I thought I knew your choice was Lenny, who I was like, oh God, he can't win, only because I've got him coming on in a few weeks. So I figured I'll tell him he's not in the team, and I'll just go and make a cup of tea or something. But
Tell me, mate,
but I've got Jared's choice coming up now as well. I think you probably know who it is.
Yes.
But yeah.
Nassim McCaw, just because he was one of my first Sutton heroes when I was a teenager. That 98-99 championship winning season, just some of the goals he scored, particularly that hat-trick away at Aylesbury and that title decider game, which was a thing of beauty. And the fact he's still going as playing football in his late 40s, just an amazing achievement, and he was just an amazing player for us.
So we're choosing two strikers who have played into their 40s.
I think the team is 48.
Yeah, I think it was in the French first or second round recently as well. And Danny mentioned playing with him recently as well. So he's sort of popped up quite a lot. I've got to brush up on my French, get him on. But yeah, so the vote's going to be Harry and Kenny and Prince Nassim and King Dundo. So we will put them out and we'll see who'll be on. And then we'll finalise the team. That'll be the first team, and then it'll move into the next stage of the challenges and so on, which should be a lot more fun and interesting and less grief, I think. But at least no one picked Paul Honey up front. That's the main thing. Right, on to the match. Interesting you're on, because you've sort of said many times in the past it's really easy to pick Matt's 11, because if everyone's fit, it's going to be the same team that was out the previous week. Yep. And he had a big decision to make, because with Eastie coming back from suspension, although there were a couple times in the last two games you were like, oh God, midfield's a bit all over the place, Matt's kind of went, no, that was on me. That was the way it was set up. It wasn't anything to do with the players. And then obviously when they got their new instructions, they sorted it out. But yeah, that must have been, and he said it in his post-match interview, it was a huge decision to leave Harry out.
You see, I don't think it's to do with Harry or East or so forth, or how well they're playing. Harry is an attacking midfielder. Matt always liked one attacking, one defending. So to me, it was quite obvious, even if he wasn't the captain. And I think it's bad luck on Harry at the moment that Ali is on straight for sure. If Ali's form drops off or not, then Harry will be straight in. Those two are the ones. Eastman's kind of has a little bit of concern, but it's always a case of one defensive midfielder, one attacking midfielder. So I don't think it was probably. I think it was hard to see emotionally. You don't want to drop Harry. Harry's a great player, and he will run and run and run. But I think tactically it was probably quite a straightforward.
Yeah. But other than that, unchanged. Have to admit, I was kind of a little bit not worried, but surprised Kobe was at 3 games in a row, coming back from his injury as well. But obviously, what do I know? But again, out of the blocks remarkably early. I think we're definitely trying to get into a position where we can hit teams on the counter because we go a goal up really, really early. I think Matt was being a little generous with calling it a set piece routine where he came in, landed to someone, passed out, and then passed back in again. And Ali also was claiming an assist as well, but I think he just sort of slid it back into the box. Kobe just 2 in 2, or 2, as Jane said, 2 in a row.
I mean, that first goal reminded me of the majority of the goals.
Yeah.
It was Newport not clearing their lines, giving us a bit of space, bang, goal, which is something that we've been prone to. But yeah, Kobe. I mean, I'd forgotten he had quite a serious injury. He didn't show.
Yeah, he's just absolutely. I mean, last week I'd said he was doing almost like the Ben roll, where the ball was just literally coming in and being a magnet to his head, and you're like, oh my god, we've got 2 of them now. But then even after then, they were quite upset. Now I've not watched it all back, I have to admit, but they were saying it wasn't a corner. They felt it wasn't a corner. However, the bits I have watched back is there was a decent penalty shout not long after, and even their own commentary team were saying, actually, that was a penalty. That was definitely a penalty.
I mean, it wasn't a classic referee at all. I mean, there was a lot of things missed. There was that bizarre 2 going down, and he literally fell over. Nobody touched him, and somebody had a heading. There were always bizarre little things coming around. But I think it pretty much leveled out.
Yeah.
Decisions sometimes go your way, sometimes go your way. I mean, in terms of being a corner, actually quite a few in the Sutton end shouted corner before the referee. So I can tell you if it was or not, but nothing it was, so I'm happy to follow that.
Yeah. I mean, strangely, I don't think there's anything to do with our game, but a completely different game, and they mentioned about the head injury thing, and it was like, players just hold their head now. And then someone else said, this is one of the things we could easily do from rugby. If someone goes down holding their head, they've got to go off for 10 minutes, do the concussion protocol, and they can get another sub on, but they've got to go off the pitch for 10 minutes. It's sort of guarantee it will soon stop the people go down clutching their head because they'll be like, no, I'm fine. But yeah, that's a different thing. Lee had another good chance. I think it dropped to him a bit unexpectedly and he shot over. But then they kind of got themselves back into it a little bit. We weathered a bit of a storm. Jack again had some great saves to make, but we made it to half-time 0-0. Were you? Sorry, 1-0 even. But how were you feeling at all half-time? Were you confident?
Yeah,
or?
I was pretty positive, mainly because of the way we were playing. Again, you're right. We came out of the blocks really, 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 really well, which we did at hardly put the Harrogate. It's very much right. Well, let's just attack and then soak up. So yeah, I think it was fine. Our defence were pretty much dealing with everything apart from that Rose stroke post section. But he does it every game. Jack Rose will do a match-winning save. So it was almost like, yeah, no problem, no surprises. But no, I mean, Newport were certainly not the worst, but they weren't really anywhere near them. So I was quite confident.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to dig out the old episodes and find where I said it, but I'm fairly sure I would have said something along the lines of, obviously when we lost Dino last year, it was a bit of, oh my God, we've lost him. But we've had it before where we had Jason Brown signed up, ready to go. Either the season off his went, and we got in Ross Warner, which turned out to be great, apart from obviously the keepy up gate, but he was great mostly. So it's like, well, it's one of those things, it could turn out to be a good move for us, and it certainly is at the moment. The second half, again, seemed to be fairly even. I think Matt said himself, they were both fairly even, except the only difference is we took our chances in the two chances we had, and they didn't. Ali with well, we'll call it a clearance just to wind him up. But yeah, another magnificent goal from Ali, and 2-0, job done. I mean, it feels a little bit different at the moment watching Sutton at 2-0 because you're like, you know what, we've got this now. Let's move on. Whereas a few months ago it was like, oh God.
I think the management team realised that we had a problem in the last minute, and they've obviously worked hard on it. So I'm certainly not as nervous now in the closing as I were October or November. But it was funny when the ball came out to Ali for his goal. I was just like, yeah, he's going to score now. He's done it before, and bang, straight in. But okay, yeah, cool.
Cheers,
Okay, yeah, thumbs up.
Well, funny enough, I'm kind of the reason I sort of mentioned way back then is I'm moving all the episodes onto YouTube, and I'm kind of getting to that point in the season last year. I think I named the episode "Sack Everyone and Burn Everything," where people were saying that we need a change on the sidelines. We've got to sell the training ground, which we don't own. And all the other things. And then I was at the game today, I was talking to Dihal, and I was like, oh, Dihal's that bloke again, remember, threw away his season ticket on an FA Cup match. So I'm wondering how those people kind of feel now, where they're like, oh, maybe we might have overreacted a little bit to a bad defeat.
I am being deafened by their silence.
Yeah. Well, maybe they have given up. I don't know. Maybe they have. But at one stage, things were looking brilliant for us. We were moving up again another slot, but I think Bradford scored a very late winner. So we stay ninth, but the worst that could happen, if everyone won all their games in hand, which I know is always impossible, but the worst that could happen now is we would drop to 10th. Because I think only one team can actually catch us with the games in hand, which is...
I think that's Swindon.
It's Swindon, yeah, which is way better than it was a few weeks ago, because we were several games ahead. But yeah, 2 points off the playoff. The magic 50 points are up. We've done it. I want to say a big thank you to Matt, because when I had him on, I did say that we were 3 games behind we were last year, and it's exactly 3 games later that we've hit the 50 points. So now I look like a genius. So thank you, Matt, and the rest of the boys. But yeah, I'm just going to, before we move on to the player of the day bits, I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds breather, because the guys who were supposed to be on did send their thoughts as well. So first up, here is Alex's thoughts on the game.
Well, good morning, Mike, and good morning, everybody. Probably the afternoon by the time you listen to this. We're just departing from Newport after an absolutely fantastic result yesterday. A few sore heads amongst our group, which will be interesting when I try and do some work later. But yeah, no, just a quick word on the boys yesterday. I thought they were, to a man, absolutely magnificent. You can never fault them for effort and commitment and everything like that, but I thought the way they controlled and managed the game yesterday was absolutely superb. I would be slightly worried if I was a Newport fan. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that during the podcast. But really, I didn't think they offered particularly much. I didn't think they had a good shape, structure throughout the game as well. So, yeah, I think they might be heading in the wrong direction. But as I say, interested in your thoughts on that. I'll keep this relatively brief, as I know you'll have more interesting things to do during the podcast and listen to my ramblings. But just a quick word on Jack Rose yesterday. I know it's slightly unusual to single out the goalkeeper during a 2-0 away win, but I thought he was magnificent yesterday. I thought some of his saves were superbly done, and the way he marshalled the defence. I'm really enjoying his command of the penalty area. I think is improving week on week, and I think the timing of which he made his saves was stunning as well. I was really impressed by his overall performance yesterday. But as I say, the boys, to a man, were fantastic, and great to see them be amongst the 250 odd away support, and yeah, fantastic atmosphere and another great win. On we go, 2 points off the playoffs.
He might have just woken up when he was saying some of that. And is Jared's thoughts?
My thoughts on the game yesterday. I thought there are times in the game where we were a little bit Newport were dominant for significant parts of that game, but we held strong across all areas of the field. Defensively, thought we were dogged. Strong. Jack Rose was at least 2 great saves and 1.5 to keep at sort of time to get the score up on Sutton. Going forward, when we did get forward, we looked dangerous in attack. Looked like we could, looked quick going forward. We did have a chance to go forward. It was just a strong, dominant, strong performance across the field from all parts of the field. It was a good, typical away win. Lots to be positive about. Lots to be excited about going forward as well.
The worry there is they both managed to say in 3 minutes what I got you and I to say in about 20, which could ruin this podcast if I carry on with that.
New podcast express format.
Exactly. So I'm going to use their choices, but I'll come to you in a second for player of the day. I've even got this as a jingle. Look, here we go.
Now watch me do my dance. I'm the player of the day.
Yeah. Right. So I figured they both mentioned, so we'll go for the first choice of Jack. I've done this sneakily because it means you're going to choose two and I'm choosing one. So, but who would be your first choice?
Oh, I think I have a clear one, actually. Even if he didn't score, Kobe wrote. Kobe has fought with it, absolutely. And I think the goal was just the icing. Even if he hadn't scored, he's peerless.
Excellent. Well, from what I've seen and read lots of other people's opinions, I'm going to stick his partner in crime, Ben, because again, he's solid. It's one of those, like Omar was a few months ago, just, you know what, stick him in because there's no way you can argue against it. So I'm going to stick Ben in. And so for your second choice and the fourth and final choice.
Okay, nearly was Will Randall. Who, again, very, very good game. Lost the ball a couple of times, why I'm not actually. I think actually
going to be
Craig
Easton.
He made quite a number of challenges, and he was in the mix all game. He was, again, I think maybe the 2 games off good, running around like Harry would.
Yeah.
Don't expect that from him. So yeah, it'll be my choice.
Perfect. Okay, well I'll add them all to the lists. Before we leave this game, I do want to say some apologies to the 7-year-old son of Ed from the 1912 Exiles, because I know he hates Sutton. No one knows why he hates Sutton, but we obviously ruined his weekend. So apologies, young man, but hopefully next season we won't have to play you. Before we're going to move on, I spoke to Stuart from the Railwaymen Podcast earlier, and I'm going to slot that in here now. So you'll have to listen to it if you want to hear what he said. So joining me now is Stuart from the Railwaymen Podcast. Hello, Stuart. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for asking me to come back on.
Thank you very much as well for coming back on. So remind me, you're it's not early morning where you are, is it?
No, we're 4 hours ahead here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you get to watch all the games on the lovely iFollow.
Yeah, so I'll say it's a great way to end my Saturday. To be honest with you, for the last 2 years, it hasn't been a great way to end most Saturdays.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself, about the podcast. What was it you kind of do? I know it's you and a couple of us, is it?
Well, it's me that set it up, and then I basically stole the format idea of Football Weekly, the Guardian podcast. I get 3 people on every week to talk about the Crewe game. The rule is that you have to have seen the game. And rather hypocritically, I'd like it if you were at the game rather than watching it on iFollow. But I do allow exceptions.
Yeah, so I'm very much the same. I rarely do the away games, so I like people to be able to see it. But then, yeah, I've called on a couple of people in Spain or Saudi as well, going just let's watch it. So you've mentioned Saturday's ruined for a couple of years. What's the season been like for you guys? I know we lost to you earlier in the season. When we were struggling, but what's the season been like for you guys?
Really boring, really boring. That's an improvement on last year, which was just really depressing. We'd go into games and just wait to concede, and then once we did, that was it. We knew we were going to lose. This year, it's been a little bit better. I mean, we are currently on a 5-game unbeaten run. We have won 1 of those games. It's really boring. January, we were unbeaten. We only played 4 games in January. Unbeaten again in January, but won 1 game in January. So you can see a theme. Like, we've become a really dull drawing team in the bottom half of League 2. It's better than last year. I think some people were genuinely concerned we might get sucked into another relegation fight. We're 17th. We're not safe. We're not mathematically safe. No one should be relaxed. But I do think we've got enough. And we seem to be getting a point every week to sort of keep ourselves away from it. But yeah, it's not been fun.
Yeah, well, I've noticed. I don't know when this started. I'll be honest, but the form table goes to 10 games now. When did that happen? Obviously, I like it at the moment because we're top of that. So it's like that's wonderful stuff. But looking at yours, I think it was 2 wins, 7 draws, and 1 loss. So you've only lost 1 in the 10. But it puts us top of the form table where we've lost 1, and it puts you guys, I think 20th. I looked earlier. So it is rule of the ball draws? I mean, is it all the home games, or is it the away games, or is it?
No, I think we've
all
actually drawn our last 4 games away. I think.
Right. Okay.
Which is a weird stat. We've won. Oh, we haven't won away since November, but I think we've drawn our last 4 away games. And then the 2 that we lost were at home to Leyton Orient and Grimsby at the start of the month. No, it literally is. I just had a look. Yeah, the last 4, all of our away games this year have been draws. We haven't won any. We haven't lost any. What was the question? Sorry.
Are you the draw specialist? But yeah, I think you've answered that.
Yeah, it's been such a boring season. I got bored of my own answer halfway through and forgot what you'd asked me. They just are. Like yesterday was a really good example. You know, we were at home to bottom of the league Rochdale. They weren't very good. We weren't very good either. It wasn't a very good game to watch. But we scored, and then we should then go on to make sure we see that out. What we do instead is we concede a goal that probably had about 4 chances to clear or to deal with it or to do something with it. So then it's 1-1. And then with a few minutes to go, one of our centre-halves gets sent off for, it's a ludicrous challenge. He just flies in, clears the guy out. The ball's nowhere in sight. 30 yards from goal, loads of people around him, no reason to do it. And that's it. Then all of a sudden, they're the ones that are going to go on to win it. And they almost did win it. It only stopped one of our other centre-halves making a last-minute challenge in the 6-yard box to hoof the ball away in the last minute of the game to stop us from losing to Rochdale. And, no one loses to Rochdale. So that's just how the season's going.
I am feeling quite sorry for them, I will be honest. Last season was the first time I ever had it with Scunthorpe. And when they visited us, the players were just looked demoralised, couldn't be bothered. And I'm seeing a lot of the similar conversations with Rochdale fans. So it's rare I take that much interest in other teams. So it's like, I'd hate to be. It's horrible to say because I know we're never going to be in that position for a good few years because we've got strong management, strong board, and everything like that. But it's just not nice to see people not enjoying themselves.
I think it's a big drop when you're not used to that drop from 4th to 5th tier. I think that is a big drop.
Yeah. You probably know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Who are the players we're looking out for?
No one. There is nothing exciting about this football team right now. No, that's not quite fair. We had a guy on loan from Arsenal when we played you the first time, Arthur Okonkwo, and he did so well that Arsenal recalled him in January, and then he's been sent out to Sturm Graz in the Austrian Premier League. He'd already got 10 clean sheets by the time January came around. So he was, our shining light for the season. We've got a new goalie in called James Beadle on loan from Brighton, very highly rated, but he looks about 12 years old. He came into the side against Walsall on Tuesday, kept a clean sheet, stayed again in the game against Rochdale on Saturday, conceded 1. So he looks very good, but again, he's quite young, but he might be an excellent goalkeeper. Brighton certainly think so. So that's good. But then, we are quite well renowned for having our own youth players. There's one coming through at the moment. He broke through a few months ago, took some time out of the team and is back in the team now, slightly changed position. And I think over the last few games, he's looked like the player that the academy coaches say he is when he's playing for the academy side and the under-21s, Joel Taberner. He set the goal up yesterday. A lovely play with him and another lone player, Ryan Finnegan, down the right wing, put a cross in, and our left back turned up in the box to head it in for some reason. Not sure why, but that's fine. But yeah, so Joel Taberner is probably the next exciting academy player. Other than that, it's just the lone players. Beadle, I've mentioned, Ryan Finnegan, we've got on loan from Southampton. He's an excellent player. He is not a League Two player. It's his first loan out. I think he'll be looking at least League One loan next season. He will be playing higher than League Two, I think. Other than that, I'm struggling. I really, really like our centre-back we signed from Carlisle, Rod McDonald, but he's not really someone to look out for. He's just someone that, he's a good League Two centre-half that knows what he's doing. So that's about as much as I can give you in terms of, I can name the players if you want, but they're pretty useless.
No, that's fine. I find it very odd. Old fella like me, the loan system, I'm like, we've got a couple on loan, and I'm like, why are we developing someone else's players? Why are we giving them the chance? And then we've been lucky in that the loan has ended because we wanted it to end rather than the other way around. But I do see that quite a lot. I know that happened to Swindon last year. They were flying, and suddenly the 3 loan players were doing so well, just went like that. And I'm like, oh God, that would give me absolute nightmares to be relying on these players. But it must be like that nowadays, I suppose.
That's exactly what it was with the Conquo. I'm fairly sure, I'm convinced we were told he didn't have a recall option, but there was one and it was kept quiet. And, he was doing great at Crewe. I would argue that if he was going to go to Sturmgrat to not start, there would be little point in him going there when he could just do that at Arsenal. But, he's getting the minutes at Crewe and he was doing great. They were really happy, but I think the agent wanted the money for the move to an Austrian Premier Division side. Yeah. So I think that's the story that I've been told. But that's it. I mean, the other loan players we've got there, necessities. Ryan Finnegan came in midfield because our midfield isn't very good. It's got no creativity at all. And then the other one we've got at the moment is Sean Robertson on loan as a right back who came in from Forest Green. And he's a young player trying to make his way in the game, I think is my best way of describing him. He's got a mistake or two in him pretty much every game. There's a reason he's not getting in Forest Green's team, bottom of League One.
Yeah. But I mean, again, very sensible. I think with most of the players playing in League Two are not, you're going to have mistakes because otherwise they wouldn't be playing in League Two. It must be galling. Right. I'm taking up a load of your time. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Look out for us on the small screen, and hopefully after this week you can start enjoying your football again for a little while.
We'll see. I think this season that's it. We'll try again next year. I think. Yeah.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you very much for your time.
No
Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. But one of the things we covered is, first of all, I don't know when this happened, but form table goes to 10 games now, which is just bizarre to me.
6, 8 or 10,
Yeah, I was like, when did that happen? It was always 6. But anyway, yeah, I like looking at the form table with 10 games because we're top and have been. So it's very nice. They, over the last 10 games, have had, I think, 1 loss as well, but 7 draws and 3 wins. So they've got a lot of draws. I think he said they've drawn their last 4 away games. He also said the word boring several times in the conversation. But what are your thoughts ahead of next week? What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, from what I've seen of Crewe recently, I thought we were hard done by Crewe. Away. It was one of those games where we were having chance after chance. We've been playing until scored, and we won it. Out of those kind of 1-0 away that we had, it felt probably the one that was the most unlucky. But I go back to what I said a few weeks back. We literally at the moment nothing to fear with Crewe, nothing Crawley, nothing Barrow. Literally, it's only really when we, and again, looking at how they played against Mansfield away near the end of March, I think we had a bit more of a challenge. But wow, they were completely upgraded. So no, I again, home form. We're playing with confidence. We've got a pretty fully fit squad. I mean, hopefully Donovan's okay this time. I don't know anything about what had happened during or whatever. But we've got players. We've got players who are going back as well. Rob Nelson's pretty close. John's pretty close. So it's going to be a selection. But there's absolutely they're a big table side.
Yeah, I think Matt said he'd taken a knock, but it wasn't anything too serious. It was just precautionary, and obviously he's got the options now. So it's like, well, may as well take the options while I've got them because you don't want to make things worse. But yeah, I'm looking at it, and this sounds big-headed, and this isn't a Sutton way, and it definitely isn't my way. When you look at some of these, you're like, there'll be a surprise if we lose to this lot. It'll be, oh, blimey, what happened there? So yeah, and I'm looking very, very clever now because I've been saying playoffs since I think before Christmas. So if this happens, I'll be like, Jesus, I do know what I'm talking about.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Again, it's a testament to how good the squad is and how well they play with each other and for each other.
for each other. That's exactly what it is. It's the for each other and the putting it in. And I know it's wrong when I say it, but it's like a bunch of mates playing football, and you don't want to not put it in because you'll be getting the piss taken out of you at training. And I'm like, I know it's not quite right, but it is that little extra, like 1%, that gives you that, like, oh, I'm live in this. And I do love it when they're giving each other stick on social media. I find that so funny. I do think it's very, very funny. It seems to have died down a little bit now, but carry that on, boys. It's really good fun. But I'm going to wrap it up and let you carry on with your journey. So Andy's being really dodgy in a service station car park with all sorts of lights flashing behind him. But we'll leave that. Leave that conversation. But thank you very much.
Car is such park right in front of me, so the headlights come on, and it's like I'm blinded, and then another one comes in and reverses in. So all my face goes red.
You were bathed in red a couple of times. I thought, what's going on there?
That's why I'm to get in Berkshire.
Exactly. But thank you for your time. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for Alex and Jared sending me their thoughts as well. Next time I'm going to be joined by off the top of my head, it's Neil, Chris, and Josh, I think, although I'm not sure Josh knows he's coming on, but never mind. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Obviously, give us any thoughts on any of the socials. That's Sutton Podcasts. Sign up to Sutton Postcard if you want to get the newsletter. It's coming out next week, I think. And yeah, like, follow, and share any of the episodes. Take care. Thank you all very, very soon. I'm mumbling because I forgot to do the play out, but I'll add that in afterwards. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, everyone. Bye.
United! 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 United!